there is a huge narrative of the journey and the knowledge of the journey and the fact that journey should be shared throughout Arab culture and Arab history. I mean, with Ibn Battuta, after his travels were done, he widely spreads around his knowledge of his travels and meeting the kings in order to better and educate the people around him. Learning from others is a huge theme throughout Arab literature.
The Book of Khalid was written a century ago, and I was curious to see how his life and his experiences at the turn of the 20th century compared to the experiences of the more modern immigrant.
I've come to find out that the Padilla last name is actually from back in the days when the Moors invaded Spain, so it's of Arabic origin. I would say that my family came to the Americas about 3 generations ago. And both sides of my family, father and mother side, settled in Mexico.
Well, the final tipping point was, I think, we were living in a relatively safe area in Brahmana, and the day the bombs started coming into Brahmana was the day my parents left. One of the first bombs to fly over actually hit my uncle's house, and my uncle was not there, but my cousins were sleeping on the other side of the house, and my parents just decided to pack up and leave.
I only spoke Spanish, and obviously here in the United States they speak English in the public school system, so I was exposed to, I guess, some of the taunting that would go on between kids where I didn't speak the language. And there was, of course, the learning barrier.
My last year in Lebanon, we were in the middle of a war, and you couldn't go anywhere, and there wasn't steady food, and it wasn't safe, and you didn't know what the future held. And my first year in America, I knew it was only temporary. I'd be going to college the next year. It was difficult to make friends, so it was actually a very lonely year. Which one was worse? I'd probably say my first year in America, but I survived that. I knew it would be great from there on in. Easier today?
Yes.
Yes, because you're much more exposed to what life in America might be like through the media. In the olden days, all you had was books and stories from immigrants, who made it back home.
100 years ago, there was a terribly long voyage involved, sometimes dangers and risks that we don't even contemplate today.
I mean, these days, the days of, the modern jets, distances are not as big as they used to be.
But I think the reality of the sort of insidious mindset of some people to certain groups coming nowadays is even more powerful than it was back then, if that makes sense.
When Khalid returned to Baalbek, he brought with him all the ideals and the dreams that America instilled in him for democracy.
He brings back to the Middle East is the freedom and the openness and especially the democratic process that is in the United States. This kind of prompts a new idea of looking for oneself in a religion that isn't as binding as the one that existed in his area, especially where he starts the revolution, which is in Syria.
What I value about America, one of the biggest things I value is is the separation of church and state, and whereas Lebanon was not founded that way.
Is the kinds of freedoms that we cherish and the kinds of human rights that we cherish, and worship as you choose to worship, and to expand your horizons in sort of multicultural and global kinds of ways. I think the American dream changes, don't you? from decade to decade. America changes from decade to decade.